What is your communication model? Because communication starts and ends with you, your sense of self, your belief in self, your confidence in self. When you walk up the street and you see somebody, the way you engage with that person is based on your mood, your health, your self-esteem, and everything else that is happening with you on that day. And on some days, you will actually keep walking because you're not in the mood for that conversation. Because your perception of that person is one of no connection, zero belonging. They have nothing that aligns with you just by that one glance at them, based on something in your mind and in your life. For other people, they will walk all the way across the street and start a conversation based on their own mood, based on their own belief in self, and based on their own ability to interact and engage in that situation. And so communication starts with self. And that start point is based on your definition of who you are, and actually your imagination of who others are. And all of those things come together to define how you interact with people. Now, let's go further to a point where you have actually started a conversation with that person. How you hold and carry that conversation is again based on you. How you think you're interesting, how you think you're knowledgeable, how you think you can have that common ground with that person is going to keep you talking, looking for topics to discuss with them. Imagine how much you want to share with them. Listen to them and make an analysis of their own information and give feedback and laugh about it or be upset about it. But all of that conversation and engagement is called differentiation. Differentiation means listening and analyzing and interpreting and giving feedback and staying in that moment, engaging with that person but remaining fully you without giving away your own pride and your own rights and everything else. Differentiation can only come from people who are self-aware, who are self-accepting, and who are self-loving. Because you're able to stand your own ground and share your own knowledge and your own identity and your own experiences with that person without feeling minimized and dismissed and insulted by their own presence. You're able to decide what you want to share and what you don't want to share and engage and walk away, making an interpretation of what that engagement meant for you and having given some pieces of yourself and walked away with some knowledge about that person. The contrary of differentiation is isolation. When that individual has the same engagement or encounter like you, but struggle to differentiate, and they go straight into isolation, either because of judgment or their own anxiety or the inability to sustain that conversation, because of their own past experiences of what they will do with that information if I share, or how they are above me in terms of knowledge and look and presentation or wealth, and just something in you that either made you insufficient or too much or irritated about that whole encounter to the point where you could not have the conversation and differentiate in that moment. And finally, there is a confluencing point of conversation where you go past that initial presentation and discussion and differentiation and actually find a lot of common ground with that person to the point where you make future dates, you make future activities and dreams, and you decide to go deeper than just a polite conversation about the weather and about children and about politics and everything that irritates you. You find that that differentiation worked well for you and you want to get to know more of this person for reasons known to you, for reasons revealed to you during that initial conversation. And again, it keeps coming back to you. And that's sadly something that we don't always acknowledge. When we are dismissed, when we are irritated and frustrated, we always make it about the other person or wholly about us. When you feel low about yourself, then it must be me. You idiot. Why did you say that stupid thing? Why didn't you say the other thing? And so you walk away in isolation thinking that it's fully yourself because in your head you're not good enough. Or it's fully their fault because you're deflecting. You're deflecting and failing to see that you could or couldn't do something in that engagement. And so when it comes to communication, you have to be fully present and fully connected to be able to say that I walked away because I actually spoke to them. I explored the situation. I attended the interview. And then I found that it's not for me. And then you can walk away from that situation without blame or guilt or hesitation because you differentiated. You gave it your time. You gave it everything. You got involved in it. And then you analyzed it and you realized that knowing what I know, having given it the effort that I did, I came to the overwhelming conclusion that this is not for me because it doesn't align, because it doesn't give the value that I want, because all those becauses that make you put it to a grave and walk away without regrets. And this is something that we need to learn to do in life more often, because it's those unresolved and unclarified goodbyes that hurt us and haunt us and keep us stuck in certain situations longer than we need to be. So avoid isolation by working on yourself and owning yourself and being proud of you. Because if you're the first person to dismiss you, then what do you expect of the other people who don't know you? Because believe it or not, that point of engagement, the other person is also looking for something. They are waiting for you to bring something. And when you run away blaming them or blaming yourself, you declare to them that you don't have that thing that they're also looking for. And so your own footprint in the failure of that issue has to be acknowledged. When you differentiate, it doesn't mean that you have to stay. That's the second thing that we need to learn. Because sometimes we get into those relationships and we do our analysis and we observe all those things that ring alarm bells in our heads, and we fail to differentiate. We fail to acknowledge them and distance ourselves from them and say, oh, actually, I had a great meal. We went on that trip. We went on those dates. But I have a vibe about this person that will make me pull away. When you stay in situations that push you down and knock you down and grind you, and you stay and stay and stay, it means that your ability to differentiate and to acknowledge your own voice and your own passion and your own path have been killed by something along the way, and you need to reconnect with that ability to differentiate. And finally, when it comes to confluencing and finding that common ground, you need to accept that it's not about equality, it's about a healthy balance. Sometimes in relationships, other people need to do more. Other people need to be given more credit, but just acknowledge that it works. If it feels good and it treats you right, then that's a balance that is not necessarily in touch with equality, but it is something that you love and that you embrace and that you celebrate, and that's amazing. The problem with confluencing is when it becomes toxic, when people start to feel entitled to you, to your opinions, to your services, and the expectation that you need to do this thing because I asked, but not because you're happy and willing to to give and to share and to be present in that moment. When you have to cancel your trips and make do because the other person needs you there so that they can be fulfilled. And it's not about your need, but theirs all the time. Think about confidence as a baby in a mother's womb. If mother is healthy, baby is healthy. If mother doesn't sleep and takes drugs and alcohol, it impacts not just the mother, but the baby. So the umbilical cord literally clocks the baby to the mother to a point where their well-being impacts on the other person's well-being. And in relationships, then, that level of confluencing means that one person has completely lost their identity to the other person, that the dominant identity is now dictating wholeheartedly on you. You can't go to that trip for 10 days because I'll suffer. I'll suffer because you need to be here to be attentive to my needs, to cook and to clean and to do this. But if that trip was going to be something for you, then it has been dismissed. And it's not about compromise. It's not about equality. Because equality is that thing that gives me what I want and gives you what you want. And therefore, being equal means being different. That I wake up at 5 a.m. and you wake up at 9 a.m. and we haven't pushed ourselves to wake up at the same time because we have different body metabolisms, because we have different desires. Equality in relationships means having that balance where you treat each other differently to please them equally. You know that they love this and you go the extra mile to do that for them, even though it's not your thing, because you know they'll do the same for you. That only comes from a place of internal peace and internal balance. Otherwise, you blame and you butter and you dismiss other people for your own shortcomings. So think about this quite deeply. What is your relationship model? And go back and start with self. Because when the self is aligned and in balance and connected, you will either be able to differentiate and find a beautiful confluence or walk away from those toxic ones.